Okay guys, welcome to day 6 of the virtual yoga retreat. I'm Caroline, and today we're going to be working on transitions. And transitions are very common in Vinyasa style yoga classes, Ashtanga yoga classes. There's so many different styles of yoga. That's why whenever people tell me they don't like yoga, I'm like, there are a million different styles out there. You just got to try to find the one that resonates with you the most. It's kind of like genres of music. There's just this like infinite selection. So in transitions, commonly, I guess the ones we're going to be focusing on a lot today are kind of a part of sun salutations. And sun salutations, they do come from India, and it was like how everyone would salute the sun in the morning. They call them Surya Namaskar practices. And it was oftentimes just like you would see groups and groups of people on the Ganga River, just kind of celebrating. It's the cycle of the sun. So I'll demonstrate this real quickly. We're gonna you come to the front of your mat and you stand tall in mountain pose. You inhale, lift the arms. Exhale, forward fold, hinging at your hips. Inhale and get length through the spine. Exhale, you'll step back into plank. And then you lower down, Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale, Cobra or Up Dog. Exhale, Downward Dog. You'll inhale and exhale here for about maybe 3 or 4 rounds. And then you'll lift your gaze. This transition is particularly tough for some people, but you walk to the front of the mat and fold in. And then you inhale, lift the arms. Exhale, release the arms. So every movement is linked with breath. And we're going to just kind of build up to this whole flow, this whole kind of transitional series. And we're going to start by stretching out your wrists, because you always want to prepare the wrists. You don't ever want to just go cold straight onto them, or it can be really uncomfortable. So to get started, you can come to a comfortable seat. You could sit on a block or a chair, and these are the props that we might be needing today. We'll have a blanket or a towel nearby, have 2 blocks if you have any blocks, or you could use like canned goods. We also have a chair that we will be using at some point too. So when you come to a comfortable seated position, we'll sit a little differently. We'll bring one heel pretty close up to kind of the center of your body, and then we'll bring the other foot just in front of it. And you can sit here. This is called easy seat, even though it's really not that easy. For a lot of people, if you have tight hips, you can, just sit with your ankles kind of crossed, and you can bring your hands to your hips or to your knees. So wherever you are in your comfortable seat, we'll stretch your wrists by reaching your arms out. Use your right hand to pull your left fingers back. Open up the palm of the hand and stretch your left thumb away. And take 3 big breaths here. Breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Inhale and exhale. One more. And we'll release the arms and shake it out, and we'll do the other side. So use your left fingers to pull your right fingers back. Open the thumb and spread the palm. Continue to go back to the breath. Last one. And we'll release your arms. Okay, so now that our wrists are kind of warmed up, you can always just kind of rig them out in circles if you feel like you need a little extra warm up. And we're going to join in tabletop pose on hands and knees. So we have all those different modifications of just being in this pose. If it hurts your knees, you can take a blanket and place it under your knees. If your wrists get a little tired after a while, you can place your hands on blocks or on canned goods. And we're gonna just start by kind of going back to those alignment cues, those little check marks. So pointer fingers pointing forward. Shoulders stacked over the wrists, knees underneath your hips, and maybe even a little bit closer towards your hands. Lengthen the spine, pull your shoulders down away from your ears. And we'll do a couple of rounds of cat and cow. This is also a really nice transitional yoga pose, like meaning you go from one pose to the next. That's kind of what today's all about. So you want to start by coming into cow pose. In cow pose, you lift your tailbone, let your belly sink down, and then pull your chest forward by dragging your hands towards the back of the mat. Some people like to take their gaze all the way up to the ceiling. I prefer to keep my neck in a neutral position because if we lift your head too much, you can start to compress some of the vertebra in the cervical spine in your neck. I don't know, I just like to kind of avoid doing that. So lift up, and then when you're ready, we'll come into cat pose by tucking your tailbone down, squeeze your glutes, hug your low ribs and belly in, and then bring your chin kind of down towards your chest. You want to keep the arms straight and use your fingertips to press down. And you can stay here. This is a pretty good pose, just to fluctuate between. So we'll let your belly start to sink down as you lift your tailbone. Inhale, lift the gaze. Exhale, tilt the tailbone down. Round your spine. Belly sinks down. Inhale, lift the gaze. Lift the tailbone. And exhale, tilt the tailbone down. Hug your belly in. Chin moves towards the chest. And we're going to stay here in cat pose. So cat pose, if you notice, you've created a bit of distance between yourself and the floor. And this is really good. So some other transitions are from downward dog. You'll step one foot forward into a high lunge. And maybe you'll bring your hands down to the ground and you'll step back into downward dog. So from here, what I'm doing to get this foot forward into the lunge is I cat my spine. So I kind of round my back to create more space between my body and the floor so that I have more room to step that foot forward. So we're going to kind of build up to this by just starting in tabletop and exploring how we can step our foot forward into lunges through different ways. So we'll start back in tabletop. We're going to work, this is a really good ab exercise. So we're going to cat your spine, and then we're going to step your left foot forward, just right outside of your left pinky. And we'll bring your hands on top of the left thigh and rise up. We'll bring your right hand to your low belly and left hand to the back, your low back, and really work on kind of sandwiching these areas together. Lightly squeeze the right glute. And then we'll bring your hands to the floor, to the inside of the left foot, and then bring your left knee back to tabletop pose. We'll do the other side. So cat your spine, step your right foot forward, use your hands on top of the right thigh to press yourself up. Take as much time as you need. We'll bring the left hand to the belly, right hand to the back, squeeze it all in. We'll bring your hands to the inside of your right foot, cat your spine to bring your right knee back. Okay, if you have trouble doing that, we can use our hands to help assist our foot to come more far forward. So what you can do is take a deep breath in. As you exhale, round your spine. You can bring your left hand underneath your left thigh and bring your foot forward. From here, you can rise on up and lift the arms. Imagine that sandwiching action that was happening earlier. Bring your hands to the inside of the left foot and bring your left knee back. We'll do that one more time. Deep breath in. Exhale. Cat the spine. Use your right hand to step your right foot forward, and we'll come on up. Lift the arms. Stay here for a breath. One more. And exhale, take your hands to the floor. cat your spine and step the right foot or the right knee back, tabletop pose. So you can do a couple of different exercises by just working on that until you start to feel more core engagement so that you can get that leg lifted high enough to step it forward. So feel free to use your hands kind of as long as you need to, and we're gonna kind of progress into the next little bit of instruction. So we're gonna come to the very front of your mat into mountain pose. We're gonna be working on standing forward folds, which are really hard for the majority of the population. It's learning how to hinge at your hips. So we're gonna come on up to stand, and we'll all need to have a chair nearby your mat. So if you're using a chair, you want, just a friendly tip, you want to keep the chair legs on the sticky mat so it doesn't move. If you try to put your body weight on it and it's on the floor, it might slide off from underneath you. So from here, you want the back of the chair to be pointing away from you. Bring your feet as wide as your hips, and you're about, maybe 2 feet away from your chair. We're gonna find that really nice mountain pose. So kind of go through the checklist. Spread your toes, ground them through the 4 corners of your feet. Lift the arches and fire up the muscles of the legs. Tuck your tailbone down and lengthen the spine. Shoulder blades come together on the back. So when we add in a forward fold, we don't want to think about our spine moving at all. Instead, what I want you to do is bring your fingertips into your hip creases, just at the very front of the hips. And then use your fingers to press your hips back. Keep the spine exactly as it is. And we're gonna come all the way down to your chair. You can come onto your hands if you feel like you're a little extra tight today. Take a few breaths here. Or you can come down onto your forearms. So this is just kind of showing you how to use a chair to start working on hip hinging. Oftentimes I see people with their legs like deadlocked, and we want to find a little bit more softness through the knees. And you want to focus on just keeping the spine really long. And as you stay here, time does begin to kind of open your muscles a little bit more. But keep everything going like a mountain pose. So keep the toes spread, keep the legs engaged. Keep the belly hugging in and the spine long. And then as you work, into a deeper forward fold, you can start to move the chair away, and you can have blocks. And we'll start to bring the knuckles onto the very edge of the blocks, fingers just drape over. And here we're just kind of practicing this really nice long spine. Remember those scapular push-ups? You can kind of do those here too, just to find the alignment of the shoulders. So you don't want to be protracted, you don't want the shoulders to be sagging forward, but you want them to be kind of drawing back a little bit. And you'll stay here for a few breaths. As you inhale, imagine the spine grow long. And as you exhale, fold a little bit deeper. You can bring your blocks down to lower settings, or you can just use the floor and bend your knees. To come out of this pose, we'll bring your hands to your hips, squeeze your elbows together, press down through the center of your heels. You can bend your knees deeply to rise on up and use your glutes to come to stand. And release your arms down by your side. All right, so I hope that went pretty well for you. We're gonna come into standing forward fold. We're trying to get all the props out of the way so we can start to sew all of these movements together. So whenever I'm practicing sun salutations or at a yoga class in general, I always like to have my 2 blocks just at the front of my mat and a blanket nearby just in case. So we'll come to stand in mountain pose, and we'll work on that forward fold you just nailed. So we'll inhale, lift the arms. Exhale, fingertips come into your hips, to the front of your hips. Bend your knees, but send your hips back. Keep your spine exactly as it is. And fold forward. Inhale, lengthen up halfway. And we're gonna exhale. Bring your hands to your blocks or to the floor. And we'll step your right foot back and come down onto the right knee. Keep the right toes tucked under as you rise on up. You can take the arms straight up to the ceiling. Feel that sandwich action happening. And lengthen up through the spine. Big breath in. And as you exhale, we're gonna bring your hands to the floor in front of you. Lift the right knee and step your right foot forward and fold in. Inhale, lengthen halfway up, get long through the spine. Exhale, step the left foot back. Lower down onto your left knee and keep the left toes tucked under. We'll rise on up and lift the arms as soon as you're ready. Big breath here. On your exhale, hands come to the floor or to blocks. Lift up your left knee and step the left foot forward. We'll fold in here. Bring your hands to your hips. Squeeze your elbows together. Press down through the heels to rise up as you inhale. And exhale, release the arms. Okay, we're gonna add on to something new. As we forward fold, we're gonna now step back into plank pose. So when you're ready, mountain pose at the top of the mat. Everything is active. Inhale, lift your arms. Exhale, fingertips to the front of the hips. Press your hips back as you bend your knees, hinging forward. Inhale, lengthen up halfway. You can bring your hands onto your knees. And we'll exhale, step back into plank pose. So from plank, you can stay on your knees, or we could also use a chair. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. And we're gonna work on squeezing the glutes, scooping the tailbone, and hugging the low belly in. We're gonna lift back up if you were on your knees into a full plank, and then press your hips up and back. Walk your feet in just a little bit. Bend your knees and take your hips up to the ceiling. Lift your waist for downward facing dog. We're gonna inhale, lift your right leg. And we'll exhale, step your right foot as far forward as you can bring it, okay? And if it's not very far, use your left hand, bring it behind your right calf, and step that foot more forward. So these are kind of tricky. If you're new to this, you might want to have your blocks handy so you can rise on up for a higher lunge. Eventually, we want to walk your hands up onto the right thigh. You want your feet to be about as wide as your hips, because if they're really narrow, it's going to be a little harder to balance. So think about widening your stance. Lengthen your tailbone down as you lift the arms high. You can also have a little bend through this back knee, but think about those spirals. So the right leg is kind of spiraling out and the left leg spirals in. And from here, we're going to come back into downward dog. So bring your hands to the floor. We're going to step your right foot back a little bit and then bring it back into your downward dog. We'll do the other side. So inhale, lift your left leg. Exhale, step your left foot as far forward as it goes. Remember that trick, cat your spine, and you can use this left arm to kind of help the left foot out. And then from here, we'll rise up using your blocks or your canned goods or even your chair just right in front of the mat. Bring your hands on top of the left thigh as you come. Take the arms up. Left leg spirals out, right leg spirals in. here. Exhale, release your hands all the way down to the floor. You can bend your knees as much as you need to. We're going to step your left foot back a little bit and then step it back into downward dog. Bend your knees and lift your waist. Inhale, float forward to plank pose. You're going to want to walk your toes back just a little bit. And exhale, press back, downward dog. Walk your toes in just a little bit. Inhale, float forward, plank. Walk your toes back just a hair. Exhale, press back, down dog. Inhale, lift your gaze. We're going to go to the front of the mat. So you can just walk your feet one at a time until you get to a certain point. And then you can walk your hands back to your feet. Hands come to your hips. Elbows come together as you inhale, rise up. And then step to the front of your mat. Release the arms down by your side. All right. So we just did a sun salutation. And now I want to show you how, if you felt like your upper body strength wasn't there yet, I'm going to show you how to do it with a chair. This is also just, it's another way to practice. It's just a different way to try something out. So we'll take your chair to the front of your mat. Come to mountain pose, just about a foot or maybe 2 feet behind your chair. And remember, find that very active mountain pose. Spread the toes and ground on through the four corners of your feet. Everything stacked on top is alive. Inhale, lift your arms. Exhale, bring your fingertips into your hips and press your hips back as you bend your knees. We'll bring your hands to your chair and inhale, lift up halfway. We're going to exhale, step your feet back into plank. And this is just a progression. This is kind of an easier way to access plank the first few times. Make sure you're pressing out through your heels, your seat is lowered, and you're squeezing your glutes as you lift your core. We're going to press back, downward facing dog. And you can even do this with a chair, especially if your wrists are just not having any weight pressure. This is a good way to kind of incrementally get up into that, or if you've had an injury, this is a really good way to also make sure that you can still practice. You get a nice opening through the shoulders, and you feel a lot happening in the legs. They're very grounded feeling and active. From here, we're going to step your left foot forward by catting your spine, and we're going to lift. We're going to just come onto the ball of the right foot. From here, you can stay, or you can start to walk your hands onto the left thigh as you rise up and lift the arms. Remember to keep your feet as wide as your hips. We don't want to be struggling with our balance. Bring your hands down to your chair. We'll step your left foot back and come back into your downward dog. So reach your hips back. I'm going to step your right foot forward, so kind of cat your spine, step the right foot forward, rise up onto the ball of the left foot. Use your hands to come onto the right thigh as you rise up. And inhale, lift the arms. One big breath. Exhale, hands to your chair. We're going to step your left foot forward. Hands come to your hips. Squeeze your elbows together, root down to rise. Inhale, lift the arms. And exhale, mountain pose. Okay, so I hope that taught you a few things. For those of you who are interested in learning more about chaturanga, I haven't really mentioned that yet because chaturanga is a really tricky pose. When I was doing my yoga teacher training, I was doing, 3 yoga classes a week, and I was practicing chaturanga. I mean, we were doing like 25 or 30 in one class. And chaturanga, if you don't do it correctly, it can really tear on your rotator cuff muscles. It can cause some damage in your tendons in your elbows, or I mean, realistically, even your wrists can be hyperextended. So it's like just going past this point that's really comfortable or even healthy for your wrists. So I've toned down my chaturangas. I don't do nearly as many, but whenever I do them, I make sure that I am focused and really dedicate all the muscles that I need to use, and I'm in proper alignment. But even then, like, you still just, it's one of those poses that you really have to watch out for, because I slowly started to get like some shoulder issues and elbow issues, and it took a long time to heal. So I want to make sure that we're doing this properly. So we're going to do it with a chair first. Actually, first I'm going to demonstrate what chaturanga looks like, and then we're going to try the easiest way, and we're going to progress to the hardest way. So, a chaturanga, you want to come into plank. It's kind of like a push-up. So from plank pose, I'm pressing out through my heels. Shoulders over the wrists, tuck your tailbone and lift your core. You bend your elbows just a little bit, and then you start to sink your belly down as you flip your toes, and inhale, come up into an upward dog. And then exhale, you start to flip the toes over and press back into a downward facing dog. Okay, so let's do that with the chair first. So remember, get your legs of the chair on the mat, and we'll find a high plank. We're not going to quite go into the upward dog. We're doing more of like a cobra, but from here, just make sure everything's aligned. Tuck your tailbone, squeeze your core in, and then we're going to bend your elbows just a little bit, and then lift your gaze. You can tuck your toes if you want. Up dog. And then exhale, you can press back into the downward facing dog with the chair. Bring your hands to your hips, and we'll just rise on up. And we'll add one more in, just so you guys can try kind of the fullest and most difficult version of it. So I highly recommend a block that's going to land kind of right underneath your chest. So find your plank pose with your block just right under your chest, almost in between your hands, not quite. You can come onto your knees if you want to practice this as well. So take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, send your elbows straight back. Bring your chest down, or your ribs down to the block, and keep your shoulders hugging together on the back. Use your fingertips, use your core, and then we'll come into a cobra or up dog. And exhale, flip the toes, press back, downward facing dog. Come onto your knees. So the block just shows you where you need to stop. I see a lot of people, they dive way too far, which puts your elbows and your wrists in a really uncomfortable position. And it's, we just want to be really mindful. Feel free to video yourself. You can send that video over to me, and maybe I can give you a couple of tips if I see anything that needs to be addressed. Feel free to ask questions and leave comments, and I would be so happy to reach out to you guys. So tomorrow, we're just going to tie all of these elements together that we've been working on, and we're going to go into kind of a nice full flow, definitely beginners friendly. So I will see you guys tomorrow for the last day of the virtual yoga retreat. Thank you so much.